Welcome back to The Deep End. I'm Kelly Scott, founder and executive director of Clarehouse. And in my role over the last 22 years, I have been able to meet some of the most amazing people, people that have come forward with all kinds of gifts and abilities. And today I'm honored to be joined by Melanie Wignall, who is a long-term volunteer with Clarehouse since nearly the very beginning, right? Or the very beginning.
I think you had been open a week.
Okay. Melanie brings deep skills. She served as a volunteer photographer, videographer, graphic designer, board member, fundraising event chair, and more. With her creativity and expertise, she has helped for years to shape and share the mission of Clarehouse far and wide. What makes her story especially powerful is not just her longevity in service, but how her personal experiences of illness, grief, and loss inform the empathy and presence that she brings to families she interacts with during some of life's most vulnerable moments. Welcome, Melanie, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
So, before we start, I want to give our listeners a quick snapshot of volunteer engagement. Nationally, data suggests that the average volunteer tenure, how long someone sticks with an organization, tends to be relatively short, with many volunteers serving only 1 to 2 years before moving on to other commitments. Only a small percentage stay longer than 5 years. In Oklahoma, retention rates, the share of volunteers who stay with an organization for more than a year, hover around 69 to 70%, which is slightly above many other states. This makes your long and ongoing commitment to Clarehouse not just admirable, but truly remarkable.
Well, thank you very much.
So we've established your journey started at the very start, a week that we'd been open. So that was back in 2003.
Yes.
What first drew you to volunteer here?
Well, so you and I had been friends prior to opening. I kind of knew your journey of getting Clarehouse started, getting Clarehouse open. But I also had my own loss in August of 2003. My dad died. And I think initially I thought, oh, I can do that. Even though Dad didn't die at Clarehouse, I thought that with our friendship, I wanted to be involved. But I also thought, yeah, man, that's something I could do to kind of, I don't know, honor Dad. Work with others that are losing family members as well. And in addition, kind of trying to understand my own grief. I mean, it was the first family member that I'd ever lost that was close to me.
And so your family consisted of mom and dad
and my brother.
And your brother.
Oh, yeah. And I thought, misery loves company. And I thought maybe I would find like souls like myself that were going through the same thing and that we could be together and then I could assist and help them. And I was probably searching when I walked through the door, really, of anything. And we were friends. And then all of the people that were involved, it was very easy to find like souls and friends within this organization. And then I felt like I had something to offer.
You did. You still do. And learning about the project while it was still in startup phase, and you knew what we were doing, what we were trying to do, but your dad was sick during all that time?
My dad only got diagnosed in August or April of 2003 and died in August. So his journey was very short. It was liver cancer and it was very short.
And he died at home?
He died at home with my mom caring for him in her home. And I was there too, as much as I could be. I had family to raise and I had a job and I was living in another city. They lived in Oklahoma City. And, but I felt like I helped as much as I could. And then I thought, I don't know, I felt armed in some ways. I felt like I'd been through this experience and maybe I could help somebody else go through it. But it was so new. It was only a month later. So in some aspects, I think maybe I was still searching too. Like, I need to find somebody that's going through this like I'm going through this, and maybe witness how they're doing it. Am I doing it right? Or can, can we help each other? Maybe is maybe what I was doing at first.
And you hadn't had any real experience of loss prior in your family with a grandparent or an aunt and uncle or anybody, or had you?
Yeah, my grandparents had died. I only knew my dad's mother, and she had died, and both my grandma and grandpa on my mom's side had died. I wasn't there by the bedside like I was with my dad, but I had experienced that type of loss.
Okay.
Yeah.
So looking back at those early days, did you ever think that this would become such a long-term part of your life? That you'd still be with us after 20s plus years?
I think that I don't know, in some ways I don't feel like I can say no. I don't want to say no.
That's been a that's been a point of contention between us for a while.
Well, let me say this, and I thought about this question. We have periods in our own lives and careers where maybe we don't feel like we are being very productive or helping in ways. I've always been kind of a people person. I've always loved helping others, and I had a career in television production at that time. Also, during this time in my early 30s, I was making some changes in my career, and I kind of felt like, there wasn't this outlet for me to really assist and help and serve in my own career. Mm-hmm. And what I found in Clarehouse when I started working with Clarehouse was the ability to fill that hole that I had of working with people, assisting if I could, giving up my talents that would be for good, whether it's connecting with the stories that I told or getting people to donate to the organization, or in the early days of Clarehouse when your staff wasn't as skilled as it was in certain areas, I was able to fill in some of those holes. And I just felt like I was really making a difference, mm-hmm. where in my job, maybe I wasn't totally getting that fulfillment. That was a lot of it in the early days. And I wasn't as busy as, we eventually get in our jobs. And I'm a fast-paced, nervous girl. So I'm always on the move. And I like to be needed. So when there was a need and I saw a need, or you saw a need, or, collectively there was a task at hand, I just always felt like I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I could make that happen.
And in the beginning, we were all just figuring it out. We were making it up as we went along, and we didn't know what we didn't know. So new things would come up, and we would deal with those and make those work. And I'm just imagining back to that time and where, a younger Melanie was still grieving and putting yourself willingly and voluntarily in that space. I mean, I'm guessing you didn't really know what you were in for with some of that. And I think particularly about one story that you told for us of a guest who was an infant and being able to meet with his mother and spend time with her, and then be able to tell that story in a very moving video. That's very different than losing your dad, but a lot of us had never dealt with that situation before, and it was really, really challenging and emotionally difficult in so many ways. And then there just were countless family stories that you told. That was a lot of your role in those early days, was making these annual videos for our events that told family stories. And how did you manage all that from a personal standpoint and a creative standpoint?
Well, I thought a lot about that question, and I think that it's the ability to compartmentalize and separate those two in some ways. My mom at a very early age we discussed death. I remember sitting on her lap and her holding me and looking down at me, and I remember saying to Mom, "I don't want to die. I don't want to die." And she had the best answer. She kind of laughed a little bit and she said, "Oh, honey, you have so much more living to do. You don't even have to worry about that now. But yes, someday it will come and someday it will happen. And it happens to every one of us. And, and it's just part of life. It's what we do. It's part of life." And I
Well,
think,
kudos to Lois Kenner, because she said things that most people would never say. They would have just shushed you and changed the subject or done something else. So what a wise, wise mama.
yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's what I do when I encounter these individuals that are dealing with death in their own life. I just know that it's part of what we have to experience. And, you know, I experienced it with my dad and eventually other family members, but it's not, she never dealt with it as a sad thing or a negative thing.
It's just part of the
It was just part of what we do. And if your person in your life that you most look up to doesn't experience it as something negative or something evil or something wrong or
failure.
or anything like that, as a small child, you're like, okay, yeah, okay, I get it.
That's normal.
And you remember that one line where she says, "Oh, you have lots of living to do." And I do. I have lots of living to do. But it will come. It comes for us all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. What challenges have you faced in these years of finding a rhythm, finding a purpose, taking meaning from your volunteer work that also supplements your career path and your creative drive? What were some challenges that you had?
Well, I think that you may not be talking about the same thing, but I will go back to that statement that you talked about earlier when Clarehouse was getting established and we were moving down the road. We were the little engine that could, we were taking on projects and things that maybe we weren't sure that any of us had skills to do, but we all buckled down and did it. And in essence, a lot of what you and the staff came and asked me to do, whether it was graphic design or some videos or even streaming during COVID when we couldn't have any our fundraiser in person, I literally was figuring things out and making them happen within my career structure that I have absolutely taken on and used in my career.
Good.
The ability to develop a brochure for our annual fundraiser was something I never did before, but I did it and has since then done it in other ways. So I think that was one of the if you talk about challenges, I'm not sure that's what you're talking about, but if you're just talking about skillful challenges, that certainly was a lot of it and became a benefit and a plus in my career. Emotional challenges, I have thought long and hard about, have I ever walked into Clarehouse and been sad or felt an overwhelming crush of grief or anything for my own family? And I just don't. I absolutely don't feel that when I'm here and when I'm with others and when they're going through grief. I don't feel that.
I think that says a lot about you as a person, as someone that can be empathetic and compassionate. That's pretty special.
Well, thank you. it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to be here. It doesn't hurt to sit with somebody else that's going through grief. It doesn't hurt to. And in ways when you have experienced it yourself, like you said, that you feel like maybe you're empowered or you have some tools that you can say, it's hard to talk to someone if you haven't been there or done it. And if you've been there and done it, you kind of feel like you kind of know what to say and not to say, or, you know.
And I do think that's one of the things about grief is that it hurts all the time. So it doesn't matter really where you are. You're going to take it with you. You're carrying it with you from home or from work to Clarehouse or anywhere else you go. And somehow for me, with the losses that I've had during this time, I feel more open that I don't have to hide any of that. I don't have to, if I lose it and burst into tears for whatever reason, it's a pretty normal occurrence around here. So it doesn't cause any big stir.
It also gave you an avenue to freely and openly talk about your own loved one, right?
Right.
So if you're talking to someone that's going through grief and you've experienced it yourself, a lot of times I felt myself talking about my dad and eventually my mother, and they start talking about their loved one, and we end up laughing.
Yeah.
Because there's something, joyous about celebrating those lives that you've had experiences with, but also knowing that the individual that you're talking to deep down feels the same way that you do about the situation.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
So you've experienced a lot of personal loss, not just your dad, but your mom and your brother have also passed away in the last 10 years. When did your
mom died in October of 2020. It was not COVID though. That's what most people do. Yeah. She died the most graceful of deaths as you can possibly imagine. She was baking cookies and literally sat down, and either a stroke occurred or a heart attack occurred, and she passed away.
And just died in her chair.
Died right in her chair with a fresh plate of cookies on the counter. So, I mean, Mom has always been an angel on earth. She was always an angel. And I just think that was God's grace. I really do. I think that that was just His grace for her. She would never have agreed to be put in a nursing home or get her keys taken away or anything. I mean, she would have defied all that. But to allow her to be cooking the day she passed,
wow,
that was wow. Yeah.
And I love that you see the gift in that. It'd be easy to be bitter about it at your young age, to have lost both parents and then a brother, and to not feel bitter about that, but to find the beauty in it, to find peace in the way that it happened.
Yeah. And one of the things that I thought about with death, we're all we measure everything in time, right? When we get up, when we go to work, when we go out and get off, everything's measured in time. And when my dad died, my first thought was, well, that's it. That's as much time as I get with him. There was like these years of me growing up thinking, when is my time with my parents going to be over? And at 34, my time with my dad was over. And I thought about that for a long time. So with my mom, carrying on a relationship with my mom, I decided I wasn't going to think about that. We were just going to enjoy as much when we got together, enjoy each other's company and have fun and be together. And I wasn't going to dwell so much on how much time do I have left. So when Mom died, I didn't think negatively, like, well, that's how much time I have. Well, there it is. That's how much it was. I just reflected on what great quality of time we got to spend together. And I noticed that dealing with her grief was like I did things that she enjoyed. Walks in the warm sun or iced tea on the porch. And I did a lot of that after her death to try to cope and deal with my own grief about her dying. And I felt great comfort in doing things that she loved the most.
Mm.
And I was real intentional when I cleaned out her house and made sure that her stuff was all, you know, packed up and done with what she would have done. And just made sure that I honored her in all those great ways. And I feel really, really good about that, knowing that we don't get to keep them forever. We don't get to keep our parents forever. And so when it does happen, it goes back to what she says, you know, we're all going to die. It's going to happen. It's part of life.
Yeah.
And so we relish the time we have, and then we give thanks.
And hearing you talk about this and seeing the tears flowing and hearing your voice break, it's you're a great example of just embracing the humanity of all of it. It is what it is. We don't get a lot of choices about the timing or the events, but gosh, the things that you've done to make meaning of it and to make sense of it and to comfort yourself, to engage in the things that she loved as a comfort to you, I think is a really, really good tip for people. You know, here's something to try that might. Did you do that because it made you feel closer to her? It was a connection.
Yeah. It was also ironic that she passed in October because fall was her favorite season. And so she loved the low sun, hanging sun that was still warm on her face, but not unbearable to be in. And I just took long walks in that sun, in the sun, and felt the sun on my face because she always talked about how she loved the sun on her face. And yeah, through that whole period of me working through grief, I felt very, very close to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you have been through these seasons of loss over the last couple of decades, has that impacted and changed how you show up for your volunteer time here, for how you might interact with guests or families or caregivers and volunteers? Because a lot of what you've done has supported staff and supported volunteers. Has that changed over time?
Not really. I mean, no. And even, mom came to some of the Clarehouse events, and she enjoyed, she knew the mission and she knew what we were doing here. And it never made me sad to come back here. I just don't feel that way.
Did you feel stronger?
Just don't feel like there's any different.
You rolled it all in.
I just feel like there's a mission here, and I can help with that mission, and I can assist in a service that's needed, and maybe I can say something to somebody that might be going through grief and understand because I've been there. And, I mean, I wish I could spend more time doing it. We all do.
Yeah.
You've
heard so many families tell their stories, and you sat with them and gotten hours and hours and hours of tape that you try to condense down into a 20-minute video and layer it with pictures and layer it with music and create a beautiful story. Is there anything that stands out to you? Any memory, any person, any piece of a story?
Oh yeah, there's tons of them. As far as the stories go, I feel like these individuals are trusting me with their loved ones, honoring their loved one, right? So in order to sit and interview and talk to them, and then edit the piece, and then present the piece after, I I I want it to be something that they can feel that we've honored their loved one within the story, um, in themselves, because they're opening up themselves to tell the story with us. And I want people to connect with the stories. I want them to see the stories and know that maybe that's the way their relationship was with their spouse or their mother or their father or their sister or their brother. And I want them to know that they're not alone and that there's others that are feeling the same way. And then, I mean, let's face it, I also like when people want to open up their wallet and donate. I mean,
Well, me too.
I mean, is that not also why we tell these stories? Because we do it a lot of times during our ask for our donations and stuff. And a really good story can touch people right at their core and their heart, and it can open their wallets too. I mean,
Which we need to help the next family that rolls through our doors. So,
but I had a couple of stories that touched me in that I didn't get to tell in video that I loved. One of them was a gentleman here. His name was Mr. Abernathy, and I think he had come a couple of times. And the reason why he connected with me is because he was a photographer. And when I went into his room, he was so excited to see me with that camera and wanted to see if I'd let him touch the camera and look at the camera. And I said, oh, absolutely. I gave him the camera and we looked it all over, and he was telling me about how he loved photography. And we sat and talked about photography for 30 minutes or more. But then I came back to shoot something, and he was leaving Clarehouse, which is something we don't get, right?
not very often.
And his daughter was loading him up in the car. And I literally walked up and I said, just like this, I said, Mr. Abernathy, where are you going? I never see anyone leave Clarehouse. And he looked me straight in the eyes and he goes, I'm going fishing.
Yep.
And I said, well, you have the best time. And I walked in here with my chin on the floor. I was just like, what? And I remember asking you, and you said, sometimes it's just not quite their time.
Yep.
And he got to go home, I think you said, for a couple of months, and then he had to come back. And then he did eventually pass with us. But I just thought that was the neatest story, because I had a connection with them anyway, the cameras, and then no one ever leaves. And then the other one that I love is I don't love that we do have infants from time to time. And we had an infant, and when we have the infants, we always beef up the volunteers to come and sit and hold hands. And this is when I had a small son myself, Jack, and you had personally asked me if I would come and help and sit. And I don't know if that's because you knew that I had a small child at home or what the deal was, but I did think for a little bit, can I do that?
But this is where that personality trait of never saying no.
Never say no. Because I do remember thinking, can I do that? Can I go sit? Because the deal with us volunteers is we were to be there for the family. If the family wanted to take a nap, we were to hold the infant and watch the infant very closely. And I thought, can I do that? Can I do that? And I thought, I'm going to do it. And so I was on the midnight to 3 a.m. shift, and I showed up, and I came and I sat outside the door, and I said hi to the parents, and I said, I'm going to sit right outside your door. If you need me, let me know. And they said, we're going to go to sleep in about 30 minutes. We'll come get you. I said, okay. They never came and got me. And I just sat there and ended up the infant passed on my watch, but I was not holding the infant. thank goodness the parents were still holding the infant, which I, to this day, praise the Lord that happened, because I think that's wonderful that that child got to be in his parents' arms. But the neat part about that story is you called me immediately. Are you okay? And I said, I think I'm okay. I said, and I told you the infant was still with his parents. And I feel like that was great. And you said, well, please turn on all the lights and put on a pot of coffee.
Mm.
And I thought, okay. I thought, well, that's weird. So I did what you said. I turned on all the lights and I put on a pot of coffee. And I no sooner got back to the door and sat down outside the door of that patient's room. And they said, the father came out. He said, you wouldn't happen to have coffee, do you? Would you? And I said, I just put on a pot. I'll go get you a cup right now. And then I stayed until the funeral home came to pick up the infant's body. And they came through the door and he said, well, thank God you had those lights on. I almost couldn't find the place. And I thought, oh my goodness. I said, this is awesome. How Clarehouse anticipates the needs of others and is able to be there even before those individuals ask for the need. And I think that's one of the best things about Clarehouse. What I love is that we're there with those anticipatory needs that people anticipate. And we also just allow them to be a family member. We allow them to be a wife or a daughter or a son. And we let us take care of the mundane things of making a pot of coffee and turning the lights on. You be with your individual. Let us do those things for you, because that's what we can do. We can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can do it because people like you put yourself in that place that you don't know if you can actually see it through or not, but you are courageous enough to put yourself in that place. And
Yeah.
I mean, you are the epitome of that volunteer that always shows up and does what's asked. And there are times when maybe you should say no, but you just won't do it.
No, I won't say no. I don't want to say no. And it's not the length of volunteering is kind of, when you think about it, I don't ever think about it.
You mean
How long I've been doing it. I don't ever think about that. Because I just, I don't, in my current state of job and things that I'm doing, I don't get to come. I'm not a regular every single week anymore. I'm not up here as much as I'd love to be. But the minute the phone call's made, I don't want to say no. It's my little nugget of happiness. However I can help. It's just what I want to do.
You've been here in some really quiet moments. You just described one very quiet moment. And sometimes we find some really deep truths in that moment. Has being here, being with a specific person or family, has it changed the way you think about kindness and presence? Just being humans with each other.
I think that when you see someone experiencing grief, one of the first things you want to do is talk them out of it, or talk them. I mean, I think you think that
you want to make them feel better.
You want to make them feel better. And sometimes just what makes them feel better is just sitting there and your presence is what makes them feel better. And you can't always anticipate when that's going to happen. But sometimes when I've gone in a room where an individual is nearer to death and the family is there, words aren't really what you're supposed to. That's not really what's supposed to be occurring at that time. And sometimes it's just a simple hand touching, or a pat. I'm here. I think that witnessing those times and then knowing in myself, words were not what I needed at times through my own grief. Just knowing that somebody was there, or even if they weren't sitting right there, knowing I could go to them, or they could be there for me at some point if I needed it, was much more comforting than someone trying to talk me out of grieving. Because you can't talk anybody out of grieving. They've got to do it. And again, and there's no time limit. Like you said, there's no particular time that it occurs. And then sometimes grieving can be laughing. Sometimes it can be joyous storytelling. You know, there's lots of ways. And so I think what I learned the most witnessing here at Clarehouse is that grief doesn't have to be noisy. You don't have to always be filling someone's head with words and conversations. You know, you can just be, and that's sometimes all they need. Because sometimes it was all I needed. I just wanted to be quiet.
Do you feel like you've carried that out of this house into your own house, into your personal life, and been able to show up like that for friends, for coworkers, for families?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I mean, I don't want to act like an expert on grief because nobody wants to be an expert on grief. I don't want to be an expert on grief. I don't want to have to witness three deaths in my own life. But I think one of the first things I tell people that when it's coming, and I've done this quite a bit with some of my friends that are losing their family members, their parents and stuff, is you know, grief's going to come to you at weird times and unexpected times, and it's gonna manifest in anger, or it's gonna be sadness, or it's gonna be this, or it's gonna be that, and you gotta allow yourself to walk through those moments, and everyone around you needs to allow you to walk through those moments, because if you're having a moment where you just don't want to speak or you don't want to be around anybody, they need to allow you to do that. Or if you want to be angry for a little bit, they need to allow you to do that. Or if you want to cry, and I think that, you know, they always talk about stages of grief, but as we've talked about, that didn't all happen in the right order sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes it's 4, 1, 3, 5, you know, whatever. I mean, it doesn't happen in order. And so I think a lot of grace needs to occur when you witness someone that's going through grief, and they don't, a lot of times they don't want you to grab their hand and say, I'll lead you through this. Don't you worry. That's not what they want. They might just want someone that's been through it so that they can reach out to you and say, I'm feeling this. Why? And you could say, well, this is what I felt at those same times, because it's not the same for everybody. And I feel like I do that more for people. Just letting them know that there's not a rule book.
Right. And it's not chronological.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in order.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talk just for a minute about boundaries, how you navigate emotional boundaries, caring deeply, whether it's in your personal life with friends, family, or when you're here volunteering. How do you not get overwhelmed personally, emotionally? How do you protect yourself?
That's interesting question, because I'm pretty much an open book. There aren't a lot of boundaries that go on with me. I mean, that's always been the case. Everybody knows what I'm thinking, and it's all on my face at all times. But that is a really hard question for me, because I don't know what that is for me.
So what do you do to fill your tank? If you've given and you feel like that was so draining, the interview, whatever, being present with family, it was really draining. So what's your self-care? What's your...
Well, I still do what I did when Mom died. I take long walks in the warm sun, or I sit out on the back patio with a glass of wine in the quiet, or I you know, just stay to myself, or because sometimes coming to Clarehouse and volunteering here can be my cup filling from the rest of my life.
Yeah.
My job is pretty demanding and pretty busy. And so sometimes when I come here and I find myself sitting in a room talking to a Mr. Abernathy about a camera and giggling and laughing about, him telling me about things that he's videotaped or shot photos of, is that it's overwhelming in your cup. I mean, it's what you need,
Yeah.
And I just don't, there's no way to I don't find Clarehouse or what is occurring here. If you look at it, this is where people come to pass. Isn't sad. It's just not sad for me. It never has been. And even when I've felt profound loss in my own life, it just doesn't scare me away. And I really can't tell you why. And probably because there's comfort somewhere in there for me.
Yeah.
And it's comforting to be here.
I love that. So for somebody that might be considering volunteering and making a commitment, but they worry about emotional burnout or fitting it into their lives, what would you say to them? What would you say to balance that? I don't want to overcommit or do too much. What kind of advice would you give?
Well, I'd say that you need to find something that you're passionate about for sure. Because when you're passionate about something, you don't ever get to the point where you're like, oh, I don't know. You just, if you're passionate about it, you just want to do it.
Yep.
And so if you know that Clarehouse might be someplace that you might want to volunteer, but you're not sure what's good for you, I would say there are tons of things to do here that need to be done. My ability to tell stories through video or graphic design or stuff is just a one way of being able to volunteer, but there's lots of ways to volunteer, and you have to find what you're comfortable with doing. And then it has to be a passion for you, because if it's not a passion and not something you don't enjoy, then you're not going to come back and do it. But that would apply to anything in life, right? If you're really passionate about it, then you would just want to do it.
Yeah. And I know you've shared those gifts and abilities with other charities beyond Clarehouse as well.
I don't do it for free.
Oh, well, aren't we lucky?
No, Clarehouse is and I tell everybody this, Clarehouse is my little darling, and it's the one that I will absolutely give my talents to for free. I've not volunteered for free for anybody else.
Well,
I won't do it.
Thank you for clarifying that. I don't do it.
I just, it's been a long relationship, and it's one that I hold dear, and
that's a boundary. That's a boundary right there. Good for you.
Boundary. That is a boundary, and that's okay with me. That's the way I want that.
So, looking forward with what you know about Clarehouse and how we've always looked at what's next, what keeps you inspired about our mission for the future and continuing to look at how else can we serve? What else can we do? Does that inspire you? Does that excite you?
I'll say this, and you know this about me. There's parts of me that wish we were still the little engine that could.
Yeah.
I just love those days. I love when we took the bull by the horns and said, people said, well, I don't know if you can do that. Oh, really? Well, we're going to try it. And we did it. We're a big organization now. I mean, there's
those apartments
of arms of Clarehouse with the education side and the nursing, now the education with the nurses, and I can't even list everything that's happening. So my involvement, although was probably larger a while back, pretty small now in terms of everything that Clarehouse is involved in. But I will tell you, the pride comes knowing that I felt like I was on the ground floor.
Yep.
I felt like I was one of the ones that was trying to help get this place off the off the ground. And when I say to people, I've been a longtime volunteer at Clarehouse. Now, before it was always like, well, Clarehouse, well, what's that? Now it's always like, oh, I love Clarehouse. And they know all about what we do and what we've been doing and what we've done for them. And almost everybody knows an individual that's come to Clarehouse and been a guest here. And I got a lot of pride in that, because I feel like I kind of helped, even in the early days, getting our message out and contacting the stations and getting them to come do stories and getting our message out. But now, people know who we are. We're kind of a big engine now.
Yeah.
So, but that's okay, because there's still ways that I can help as long as you guys will have me around. And I really hope that eventually, when I decide to hang up my career side, that maybe I can come be someone that answers the phone on a weekly basis, or brings a meal every Saturday, or can grab a mop and mop the floor. It's where I started 22 years ago, and certainly wouldn't mind doing it.
Wow.
Later.
Awesome. So, Melanie, have you continued your mother's legacy and had these kind of conversations with your kids about dying and what that looks like?
I think, I think with Mom's death in 2020, we did talk a lot about death. My kids were older then. They were all in their early 20s. Jack was a mid-teen. We did have some conversations about that. I'm not sure that I did the whole sitting on the lap like my mom did, and maybe I should have done that. Maybe I should have done that better, because I think that was really the turning point in my entire life. Mom always knew where, however religious you are or whatever your beliefs are, she always believed and knew where her soul was going to go after she died, and she was very comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. So dying to her was never anything she was going to be afraid of. And I think if we spent more time educating people earlier on in life about that, it might soothe a lot of people throughout their lives and soothe that fear of dying, because it's going to happen.
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
And that's our goal with this podcast, with our education, with all that we do here, is to try to normalize the conversation like your mom did, to just make it an easy, comfortable discussion about this inevitable process that we all experience as human beings. And there's no getting out of it. There's no getting out of here alive. Thank you, Melanie, for being so open with your story and for the countless ways that you serve with heart and craft. Your willingness to step into places many people fear has made space for healing, care, and connection. And that is a legacy worth celebrating every day.
Thank you very much. It's an honor. It really is.
I enjoyed it, getting to sit down with you. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to another episode of The Deep End. If you like what you hear, tell someone about us and come back next month for more conversation about what matters.